Good afternoon. This is White Claiborne from Brad and the Brit, and I'm here to do week 5 of our weekly design series. So I hope you guys are finding value in this one. This one is another week of something I'm really excited about. Something I used to do a lot when I was an interior design consultant. It's the first job I got after I got out of college, and it was so fun. It was at a fabric store, and I worked my way up to be able to go out to clients' houses and do all that stuff. It was great. It was a lot of fun, really creative, so many fabrics. It was beautiful. So this is kind of one reason why I wanted to do this topic, and it's about how to use multiple patterns in one room. So this could be lots of videos put together, but I'm just going to kind of go over a little gist for you, and then feel free to always ask me questions. I'm happy to answer any of those that you may have. So really the key to this is about mixing your scales of your patterns. So you really want to think about how big that particular pattern is, and then how small you can really go. And then there's always textures and solids. So use your color palette. I feel like I talk about this a lot, which is really helpful for me because it really helps to highlight how important a color palette is and how much it's really helped me with all my design tips is to have one. Again, can be broad, does not need to be something you have to stick to all the time, but it's a great guideline. Try to see the fabrics in person. There is nothing like being able to feel them and really see what the true colors are. If you go to a fabric store, they should give you samples. We used to do that. Hopefully they still do that, so that you can see them in the room that you want to put them in, because obviously light and the other colors and items in the room will change that. So try to see the fabrics in person. And then, take risks. Go with something that isn't, something you see everywhere, or just a solid, or, something plain. Try to do something. And if it doesn't work in the particular room that you're thinking of, it might work somewhere else, because if you're working within your color palette, it should flow kind of into any room. So here are my tips. Use your color palette and try to have at least one fabric in your room that has your whole color palette. This kind of goes back to what I talk about with trying to really tie the whole room together, and those kind of key elements really do. So if you have like a curtain with all the fabrics, with all the colors in it, then that will really help solidify your colors and the feeling of that room. It'll feel complete. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do in the snug, which is why I'm being really picky, because it's the last element. I probably should have done that first. Just as a tip, try to find those items first and then build outwards, as opposed to doing it last, because it gets hard. It's a lot trickier. So find at least one fabric with all your colors. And then layering of the scale of the pattern. So I kind of touched on this. You want a small, a mid, and a large. So if you have lots of pattern that you plan to put in that room, just make sure that you're varying your scale of pattern, and it won't feel too busy. It won't feel too overwhelming, and they'll all sit well together. If you have too many large scale patterns, your eye can't rest in the same way. It's just like how you should have negative space on a wall so that there's spots for your eye to rest. So a good example of a small, medium, and large could be like a check, or gingham, or even a solid, like a nice texture fur kind of thing. You see those lots of places. When I was doing fabric stuff, you didn't see as many faux furs. It's just fun to see how things change. And then a mid pattern could be this. This shirt actually is a really good example of a mid-scale pattern. And then a large scale, could be a huge stripe. It could be kind of more of a Ralph Lauren spread apart cabbage kind of, or a hunting scene, or any of those things. I think a large scale pattern is pretty easy to say, okay, that's a large scale. But a mid one, is kind of anything in about this scale. And if it has more negative space, then you can probably get more than three patterns in the room. So, yes. So basically try to mix them. If you're layering pillows, this is a really good tip for pillows. Same thing. If you have one pillow in the back, that could be a fur or a texture or solid, and then you can layer 2 different scales of patterns on that, and your eye will feel like that flows correctly. It can also, your fabric or pattern can be a focal point. So it could be a really great pattern on your sofa, or a really great pattern on your curtains, or it could be a wallpaper. I personally like wallpaper that isn't the only thing in the room. I'm a maximalist, so I like multiple things, but you could have a really great patterned wallpaper, and then everything else could be just colors within your palette and small textures and small scales. And so the focal point would be the wallpaper. Or you can have your focal point be your curtains or your couch. Or it doesn't have to do anything with the pattern, but in this topic, you can use the focal point as a way of mixing your scales, so it can be built around that particular item. So I also kind of touched on this. It's bringing in different textures as solids. So you don't have to have just a plain muslin fabric, or a plain white or anything. It can be like a woven fabric, so it can be a linen, or it can have different textures such as fur or anything like that. So I prefer that to just a plain solid. I'd rather it be like a velvet or something that will have some interest, anything with a nap. So if you don't know what a nap is, it's when you wipe your hand on it or just gently graze it, and the fabric itself flips to a different side. So if you know those sequin pillows that you can easily flip back and forth, that's the same thing with a nap. So our velvet sofa in the snug will has a great nap, and you can see that by the different colors when you put your hand on it. Anyways, so anything like that will be a good textured pillow. And then also just be aware of pattern in other places that you might not necessarily expect, such as paneling and walls. That will busy your eye, even though it could blend back. You will want to make sure that you're having, strong squares or strong horizontal stripes or strong vertical stripes. And so if you do that, you don't want to have tons of striped fabric in that room as well, because that will just be overpowering. You didn't mix your scales well enough and didn't mix your patterns. So just be aware of paneling or wallpaper or a rug. So I don't do a huge amount. I don't talk a lot about rugs because I have had animals the entire time I have had houses, and they just ruin them. But if you are lucky enough to have beautiful, ornate, patterned rugs, then be aware of that scale of pattern and how it can fit into the room with your other patterns. So that's another great spot to start with and build out with, is your rug. So today is a little bit longer. I hope that was valuable information. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.